Back now to our main story today. People who want to come to the UK who are low skilled or low paid won't be able to get a work visa under the government's plans for a new points-based immigration system. It will be introduced in January, and many industries, including the care and hospitality sectors, have warned the plans could have damaging consequences for the economy. Well, joining me now is Alp Mehmet from the Migration Watch UK organisation, which campaigns to reduce immigration, and also joining me from the North East is Bryony Rest, an immigration lawyer with David Gray Solicitors in Newcastle. Thank you both very much for joining us here. Alp Mehmet, let me start with you. So your organisation campaigns to reduce immigration. How far will Priti Patel's proposals go towards achieving that end, do you think?
Well,
in the way that you want it to happen?
She has made a reasonable start by pulling back from some of the proposals that her predecessor put in place. Sajid Javid, just before Christmas 2018, he had a scheme, an idea that low-skilled, no-skilled workers would be able to come in, look for work and stay for less than a year. They've moved away from that, and I welcome that. That's a sensible thing to do. However, what they're also proposing is really having plugged one end, they're opening it up at the other. They're lowering the skill levels required to get a job. Their employers are no longer going to have to advertise. The salary threshold is being reduced to 25,600.
It was 30,000.
It was 30,000. Well, yes, but lots of exceptions, of course. And that really will mean that something like 16 million jobs, all these measures, will expose 16 million jobs in this country to overseas competition. That isn't sensible. And also,
you want to see British people getting those jobs?
I would like to see more training and more preparation, yes. Nothing in the way of preparation has taken place. And that's the fault of employers, really. I would very much like to see the sort of system which not only allows people to come in with the right skills, but also presses employers to train more, because training has fallen through the floor, and we can do a great deal more of that.
OK. Bryony Rest, what do you make of the proposals, and how do you respond to Alp Mehmet?
Well, the proposals really are similar to what we've got already with the skilled work route, but like Alp says, with a slightly lower salary threshold and a slightly lower skills threshold, but these are still skilled jobs. I think there's a lot of concern from many industry areas that have relied on what the government call low-skilled jobs, but possibly they mean low-paid jobs, that who are they going to recruit to replace the EU workers that they can't retain, or perhaps it's seasonal work, for example, that they need workers for certain times of year. How are they going to replace those workers? The difficulty is for these sectors is that these changes are coming in January. They've got 10 months to prepare. And whilst the government have said that more British people should be employed in these jobs, like Alp says, there'll be more training needed. Also, a lot of these jobs, the government say, could be automated, but you can't automate care. You can't automate all fruit picking. These are actually very important jobs in our economy. And I think the government needs to give us more detail about how they expect the British economy and workforce to replace the workers we can't now recruit from Europe.
So Priti Patel does say that there are 8 million plus people who are economically inactive, but it has been pointed out that a lot of them are elderly, or they're carers, or they're students. Who are these people who are going to do this
Well,
work?
there are something like 4 million people who would actually like to do more work and are available for more work and can't. That was an analysis that we did not so long ago.
4 million?
Yes, if not more. Fruit pickers, well, there's already a scheme in place to allow up to 10,000 fruit pickers to come in. They're not really an issue, because fruit pickers will come in, and so long as the scheme is properly run, I don't see any problem in that, because they don't add to net migration.
But they won't be allowed in, will they?
Yes, there is a scheme. The government is going to has introduced a scheme which is now going to be expanded and will allow for 10,000 fruit pickers, seasonal agricultural workers to come in. The other thing is care. Now, a few years ago, I think in 2016, the Migration Advisory Committee said there's no such thing as a shortage of care workers. What you need to do is pay them a little more. pay them a little more and change the conditions. And frankly, that is also something that we could look to first, rather than automatically go for the cheaper option.
But that, as you know, requires
overseas.
more money from central government to local government, and local government has been vastly pared back in the last 10 years.
So be it. So be it. I think that
You can't have both. You've got to pay them more.
Well, in the short run, I think that is money well spent, frankly, because what people also forget is that if someone is coming here, they need a roof over their heads. If they're going to live here, their children will want to go to school. They will have cars. So there are added pressures to a population that's increasing by 1 million every 3 years, and that 80% of that the result of migration. That is not sensible.
Bryony Rest, just to pick up on that point that Al Mehmet was making about seasonal agricultural workers, that there are routes in already that are going to be expanded. Is that right?
Yes, there's a scheme currently in place for 10,000 extra workers to come to meet that seasonal need, but the industry says that's just not enough at all. That's not going to replace the workers they've had mainly from the EU that have done those roles. Now, maybe the government are going to expand that, but I think the difficulty we have at the moment is a lack of a lot of detail about how this is actually going to work. And can I pick on one more point as well about training, is that for the last 4 years, the government have imposed what's called an immigration skills charge on any organisation that's brought in overseas workers, which is supposed to have gone back into a pot to train British workers to take more roles. Now, it obviously hasn't completely worked, and these things take time to filter through. So this is not feasible by next January, that all the workers that are needed to fulfil these places, which are maybe lower skilled jobs in some view, but are still require some skills, it's not enough time to replace the workers and train them up to do the jobs. It's not feasible.
That is a very valid point, isn't it? 10 months is a tiny amount of time.
Well, officials have been working on this for months and months and months.
But businesses haven't.
Well, businesses should have been working on it, frankly. The referendum took place in 2016, in June 2016. Why haven't they been preparing?
Because they didn't know what the plans were going to be.
No, because they didn't expect to come out, frankly. I think they were assuming that somehow everything will be brushed to one side and Brexit wouldn't happen at all. Well, I think if they were sensible, they would looked ahead and planned, at least for the potential of us leaving and having to look for additional workers.
And Bryony Rest, if you could speak to the Home Secretary and address to her your concerns, what would you say to her?
I would say that the current plans don't give enough detail about what businesses need to know. They need to have much longer to prepare for this. They need to have some proper detail in place, and the scheme needs to be much more flexible. For example, I mean, I'm based in Newcastle. The salary thresholds, even the lower ones that are now proposed, it just don't reflect our local economy up here. It might be fine for London, £25,600, but for Newcastle, that's quite a sizable income. So there needs to be some other detail and reflection about how this is going to affect all of the country, not perhaps just the South East.
Really interesting. We're going to have to leave it there. Bryony Rest, Al Mehmet, thank you both very much.